Welcome back to the React Game Challenge. In this challenge, we are designing a game, learning and writing code for React.js components, making the app responsive for desktop and mobile users, learning and writing code for React states and props, and deploying the web game app online. In the last part, we have designed our game. Today, we will convert that design into an actual app. If you have come directly to this video, I will highly recommend that you go and check the first part first. And if you have already watched that part, let's resume the challenge. My name is Aditya Shenoy from Brainy, where I make programming simple and fun. Oh no, the game has started lagging. This is because 86% of people who watch my videos are not subscribed to this channel. And if you want me to continue this React challenge without any lag, then please go down and click the subscribe button and the like button. And both this button clicking is completely free and you can always change your mind in future. So in the last video, we have designed this desktop version and the mobile version of the Stone Paper Scissors game. And so in this design, we have completed all the elements that we want to display in our application or game. And today we are going to convert this design into an actual React code. So before starting to write the code for React app, let's first understand what is React. So it says in a very simple way, a JavaScript library for building user interfaces. It is that simple. You can build user interfaces using JavaScript. That's it. So this is the overview of the React. In the last video, we have compiled a empty stored paper scissors app using npx create react app, and we have set up an initial project, a boilerplate code that is provided by React.js, and it has generated some of the files. So let's quickly see what are they and why are they used. So these are the node modules that gets installed by default when you run the npx create react app. And you might not need these modules in your code, but for converting your code into an actual deployable code, React.js engine in the backend, it uses all these modules to convert your code into an optimized code. And like some of these are Babel converts your JSX into actual JavaScript understandable code, and there are a lot of modules that gets used while your code gets compiled. So in the development phase, the code is not optimized, as there are some functionalities that help development, but it is not or efficient, or it is not optimized for actual deployed websites. So we will come to know about those features when we actually start developing that. So you don't need to worry about these modules because it the npx create react app is for that only. Like you don't need to install any node modules or understand the versions or anything. It gets handled automatically. The second folder is the public folder. In this is the favicon ico. This gets displayed over here. This is the favicon.ico image that gets displayed, and then there is index.html. This is the page that gets actually displayed. So React.js app, once we deploy, will be a single page displayed app. So in the entire session, the only HTML page that gets displayed will be this file, index.html. And these are the head tags like meta tags, the favicon.ico, and everything is over here. And this is the division, this is the div id in which our application will get rendered, but there is nothing inside this. So you might wonder how is the entire app gets generated over here. So we will see that in just a second. And these are other logos that is publicly available. So this public folder contains resources that is available for public. Next is the source file, which we will work on, and that contains the actual code. So let's first see the index.js. Index.js gets called automatically with the index.html, and over here we are finally importing the React module and the React DOM module, and we are importing CSS files. And over here you can see a component. This is a component dot slash app. We are importing a component and then we are using it as a HTML tag. And you might wonder, like, if you are new to React, then this syntax may look confusing, and it is confusing, but it helps in development a lot. So this is JSX, which is JavaScript XML, and it looks like XML. It has rules of XML, but it is embedded inside the JS file. And this is the syntax that will get converted to actual JavaScript code with use by using the one of the node modules, that is Babel. So you do not need to write a complex code and everything, and this XML syntax makes it very easy to develop. And over here you can see that React DOM.render, this application is rendered inside the element whose ID is root. And if you remember, in index.html, this is the exact ID of the division that we were talking about. So the app that gets displayed over here is rendered by this JS file, and it only imports this app. So this app component will contain the entire app. And index.css is normal, the normal CSS file that we do. Next is the app.js. So this boilerplate code might look confusing for you, because as you can see inside the JavaScript file, we are using HTML tags, and these are the part of JSX only, JavaScript XML. So let's not confuse ourselves over here, and let's first clean up the directory or the project folder that they have provided us. So let's go to source folder and let's delete all the files that we don't need for now. So logo, report web vitals, test files, we don't need that, so we can delete that. Public folder, we will modify it later. And over here, instead of having all the JavaScript files, CSS files, all the images inside the same folder, it is very a good practice of to separating the components or and with the styles and the images. So I will create three folders: one for component, one for styles, and one for images, like this. And let's move app.css inside the styles and app.js inside the components. We will not move the index.js and index.css because that shall be present in the source folder, and anything that we will code after this will be present inside one of these three folders. The images will also be populated. Let's just populate that. So in the last video we have used these 6 images for our design purposes. So these are essentially the just 3 images, and 3 are the flipped versions of that. So I will copy this and paste it in the source/images folder so that we can use these images in our component codes. So once that is done, let's move to code. And instead of manipulating this code, let's remove everything from here. Mm, and edit this app.js, and also let's remove all the stylings that they have provided and just add for all elements. This star means all elements. This styling will apply for all elements. Margin 0 and padding 0. This will help us to add our custom margins when we need that. So index.css just needs this. In index.js, as we have deleted this report web vitals, we won't need that. Index.cs is in the same folder, so we do not need to change that. Let's remove this, and And as we have changed the folder of the application, the app component, let's change the path of that. So dot slash component slash app, like this. And we do not need to touch this index.js and index.css after that. And all the code that will happen will be inside these three folders only. And specifically these two folders only, because components and styles will only contain the JavaScript and the CSS files. So let's, as we have opened this app.js, in the older versions of the React, we had to import the React module and the React DOM module. But while compiling this app, React.js automatically imports all the React modules for you. So you do not need to import that module as well. And we just need to import the styles of this app. So as these app.js and app.css are not in the same folder, we have to go back to source folder, then go to styles, and then we will find the app.css. Now, to create a component, a React component inside a React application, there are two ways. The easiest way is to create a function and name it the and the function name will be the name of the component, and we will follow a convention where we will define the component name in a capital camel case, like where the starting letter is capital and everything else will be camel case. And for now we do not need to put any parameters. We will put that in the later development, but for now this is the only required thing. And inside this we want to return something. So we will return here the elements that we want to display. So here we will write the JSX code. So as we can see over here, these are the elements that we want to include in our app.js. So let's first create an element with class name. This is a different syntax. We cannot use just class, and we have to use class name instead of that. And let's give the same name but with the smaller letter. I'm following a BEM convention, that is block element and modifier, and I will explain you that convention as we write the code. So this is a block, so I'm defining a block over here, and this block will contain all the elements, so B and E and M. So inside this block will contain the elements, and this convention will help us write the CSS very easily. Once we have defined our block, for this application to be accessible to the index.js file, we have to export this file from this local JS file. So what we can do over here is export default app, like this. Or instead of writing it in a separate statement, what we can do is export default function and then this. So we do not need to write two statements for this. We can just write export default function, and this function will be an application which will have this JSX inside it. Now this is the minimal React application, and as you can guess, there is nothing inside this, so nothing will get displayed, but we can check whether our React app is getting compiled at least. So let's open a terminal. You can open the terminal in VS Code by pressing Ctrl J. And for starting the server, localhost server, we have to put npm start. This will start a localhost server which will display our React app. And this is our app. You can see the favicon.ico in the public folder. We have not changed anything, so the entire title and everything will remain the same. We are just focusing on this document, and currently it is displaying a white screen and blank screen, and that is perfect. Like, we have not included anything, so that is correct. So this is the React syntax. We do not need to import anything for now. And for creating a component, one way is to create a function out of it. And return some JSX inside that and then export default data. So our first quest is to write HTML/JSX. Now let's see how to approach a React.js project. So over here we have our design, and we can write everything in one component, but that is not what React is for. We can create components, reusable components. So for example, if we have to create 3 buttons, so we do not need to copy paste the code 3 times with different name. We can create a separate component, a separate JavaScript file that will return a button of all this type with just the text change. So we have to decide what components we want to include or what elements we want to include. By elements, I mean that the code of that will directly be present inside this application. So this is our entire app. The entire green thing, entire screen thing is our application app component. Inside this, we have a header. Now, do you want to create a separate component that is static, that is just displaying a title that does not change at all in the entire game? No. We can just use a simple HTML h1 tag or a small normal div tag with some styling, and we can display this. So we do not need to create a component for this. But for score, this entire thing we can create a component because this is dynamic in nature. Depending on the status of the game, the button click and the both these hands, this score will get updated. So it is slightly complex, and when it is complex, you want to make a separate component of it, and that will make your code more manageable. You can write everything in a single code, but that will not help you in the long run. So once you see a complex element, you want to create a component out of it. So we are creating a component for score. Then this hand is a simple image with just some styling. So you might wonder why we need to create a component out of it, because it is very clear that we are using the same element, the same component more than once. And if you see that, then it is a sure sign that we want to create a component out of it. So the same styling will be applied for both components, so we do not need to repeat our code. We just want to create a component that has a property of the image that gets displayed. So only thing that gets changed over here is the image that gets displayed, but all the styling, the sizing will remain the same. So we are creating a component for hand, and again similarly we are creating a component for buttons because there are more than one button over here, so we can reuse a component over here. So let's comment so that we can have a plan. First will be a header. This will not be a component, this will just be a simple HTML element. Then we want to display a score component over here. Then two hand components over here, and then app button component. So over here I'm not using the component name as button because button is already a tag inside the HTML. So we do not want to conflict with the HTML. So I'm giving a different name, app button, with a camel case as we have discussed. So we will code this one by one. So let's see. We have our header. So let's start writing this component one by one. So this header will be an element. So we can create a simple div with the class name because we want to style this afterwards, and I will follow the BEM convention. That is, it is very simple. If we are defining a class name inside a block, what you can do is app double underscore and the name of the element. So in this case it was header, and this alone will tell you that this header element is present in the app block. So you do not need to write complicated select statements in the CSS file. So in this, we will display stone, paper, scissors, the header, and that is it. So this is the header component. And now you know why I didn't create a separate component out of it. So this was just a 3-line code, and we do not need to create a component that we are not thinking of reusing. So this is done. Now let's create a score component. Now how to create a component, a separate component? First, you have to create a JS file, and as we are separating the style, the CSS files and the JavaScript file, you have to create that file in the components folder. I will name it as core.js and its corresponding style file. So CSS file score.css. Initially it will be empty, so we do not need to worry about that. But as we are importing, the creation of the file is important. So in this core, we will first import its CSS file. So again, they are not in the same folder, so we have to go back to the parent folder, then styles, and then score.css. And similar to the app.js, how we created a component out of here, it is same. So export default function, the name of the component, which is score, which will return something of JSX, like this. And over here, we can see that we want to display 3 lines of text: score 1.0, 1:0, and reset button. And this is not a button, this is just underlined text which we will add functionality to it later. So in this, first we will create a block again. So in JSX, you have to create a root element, that is an element that will contain everything else. You cannot move this out, that will lead to a syntax error, because inside this JSX there should be a root. So we want to include that in the block. So over here the same rule will apply. So we will create a div with a class name same as that of the component name, that is score, with small case or lowercase, and inside this we will include all of the elements that we want to display in this core component. So as you can see, there are 3 text elements, so we can create 3 divs like this, and inside one we will display a static text score that will not change, but this will change. So 10, we will keep everything static for now. We will change this dynamically once we complete our entire application first, and the next will be the reset. And as we want to style this reset text for having underlined text, we want to include a class name. So I will include class name, and as per the BEM convention, this div element is present inside the score block. So I will name it as block double underscore the element name. So I will name it as reset. And this is done. So let's see whether, and I am saving this file. So over here you can see this file is saved, and without doing anything, you can see that our application is showing the changes that we are making. So you might wonder, where is the score? Because the score is not getting displayed because we have created this component but we have not used it anywhere. So for using it, you have to import that first. Import, it is in the same folder, so /score. You do not need to include .js, and as we are exporting by using this default keyword, we can import score component from this file. and this gets grayed out because we have not yet used this import. So we will fix that now. So for calling this component or for using this component inside our application, what we want to do is we want to treat this core component as if it was a HTML element. So we will do this, and VS Code has helped me to put this ending tag, but this core component will not contain any children as such. It is a single component. So instead of this, and removing this will lead to an error because this is not HTML, this is XML, this is little bit stricter, so it needs a closing tag. So what we can do is we can convert this core component into a self-ending tag. And if you're familiar with XML, then you might be familiar to this. Basically it means that we, instead of having separate starting tag and ending tag, we are combining this by including this forward slash. So this is, so by this way we have used this core component inside our application, and I have saved this file. So over here you can see that the text that we have written is getting displayed over here. So that is good. And let's move to the hands component. So you have to do the same thing over here. Go to components folder, create a file, name it the component name that you want to give. So I want to give it the name of hand.js, and create an empty CSS file corresponding to that. So hand.css in the styles folder. Let's go to hand.js, close this hand.css, we do not need that. And first we want to import the CSS file dot in the previous folder styles hand.css, like this. This import will not do anything for now because the CSS files are empty, but when we later add the CSS, the stylings, it will automatically import. So we do not need to touch the JS file after that. So again, for creating a component, we want to create a function, name it the function name will be the name of the component, and inside this we will return some JSX. And finally we want to export this function using default keyword. Over here, as you can see in the design, this hand component is just one image element. So we do not need to put a div element, a dummy root element, and then put an image tag inside it. As there is just one element, that image element can also act as a root. So it is not compulsion that you want to include a div tag as the root, as we have done over here. We have done this over here because it contains some more than one elements inside that. But over here we just want to include an image. So we can put an image tag directly. Again, not a this does not require an ending tag, so we will close this like this. For styling this, I will name it uh, as class hand. And for source, we want to display an image. So what image we want to display? So in JavaScript, you want to first import that image. So import dot slash images slash stone user dot png, whatever the file it is. So in the source folder, we are going inside the source is the parent folder, and then we are going to the images folder, and then we are taking the stone user, and we will name it as stone user again from this file. And here comes a React syntax. Now you want to display something some variable, some object of JavaScript. So you cannot do it like this. This will not work because stone user, this will be considered as a text and not as a JavaScript object that contains the actual image. So to fix this, you want to include all the variables, the special variables that you are using inside the JSX code inside a curly brace. src equal to, in the curly braces you want to include stone user, and this is a valid JSX syntax. And over here we are again displaying some static values, like the stone user will be displayed for both user and the computer, but we will change that once we complete the entire component thing. So this is done. Now I have saved this file, but no image has been displayed over here. Yes, you have guessed it correctly, because we have not imported that or used it anywhere. So I'll just copy this and change this to hand, and this is unused import. So now here comes the special part of the React. We have created just one JavaScript file. We can call this component any number of times that we want. So first we will call this component hand once and twice, and so that we can style this related to each other, let's enclose this inside a div tag. Div class name, and again using the BEM convention, what we will name this, we will first start with the block that we are inside. So app double underscore, and what is this element? So this is app hands. You can name this anything, but that name should be easy to understand. So this is a element inside the application block that will contain our hands, and we are including this because we can easily distribute the space between these two hand components, and that is very easy if we enclose both the elements inside a div tag. You will understand this when we start writing the CSS file. And now as we have used this, yes, it has been displayed. Now this image size is the size of the image that is present over here. It has not scaled down this image or scaled up this image. It is just showing the image in its original size. Now we have included our header, score component, hand component, and the only component that is left is the button, and we are naming it as app button, of course. So again, for creating that component, create a file inside the components folder, appbutton.js, and the corresponding style file, which will be an empty file, appbutton.css. Inside the app button, we will import the CSS file that we have created. The name of the CSS file that we want to import, so appbutton.css. And again, for creating a component, we want to create a function app button and return some JSX, and then export that component using default keyword. Just like the hand component, the app button component is just one HTML element, that is a button. So we do not need to create a dummy div tag and then include a button inside it. We can assign this button tag only as the root. So I will create that button, and this will require an ending tag, so I will keep that. Button class name will be the name of the component. And over here in the BEM convention, we start with lowercase, and in the component name, we start with the uppercase, and both are camel case. So it is just the first letter. And inside this button, we will display some static text for now, that is stone. For all the three buttons, we will display the stone initially. We will change that in the later phase of the development. And we have completed this app button component, so we can use this component over here. Copy this import and import app button. And again, like as we want to style this three buttons related to each other so that they have equal space around them, we want to include that inside a div tag, which will be app double underscore buttons. So this is an element inside the app block which will contain the buttons. And for buttons, I want to use app button and call it 3 times. And as I have saved this file, the three buttons are displayed. And this is one of the features of React, that as you save the file, the web page, the React application that is displayed in the localhost server gets automatically refreshed, and that is known as the hotfix. So the website is running and you are fixing something in the code, and it is getting fixed in the actual code live. So this is hotfix. But when you do this, the website or the web application is not at all optimized. So this feature is good when we are developing, but when we are finished with our code, we do not need this functionality. So for now, we have completed our React.js application, and this looks so amazing. Oh! And yeah, we have received an achievement, that is HTML programmer. Wait, HTML is a programming language? Okay, let's not debate that. In this way, we have completed our application's HTML elements without the styling, of course. In the next parts, we will add the styling and make this app responsive, and add the React states and prop, and then finally deploy the app. Subscribe to this channel for not missing out the future parts of this challenge. Do like the video. Likes help me be encouraged for making more such videos to you. If you dislike the video, press the dislike button if you want, but I will request you to comment why you dislike so that I can improve on those factors in the future videos. Share this video with your friends who will find this challenge useful. If you want to see a line-by-line explanation of data structures and algorithms, check out the playlist over here. If you want to learn Python built-in functions along with various Python features, tips, tricks, and real project examples, then check out the playlist over here. If you want to see a hands-on game development project, check out the playlist over here. And I will see you in the next video.